My name is David.
And my name is Jason.
And this is Discern Realities, a Dungeon World podcast. Our first segment is What Happened Here Recently. Jason, I understand you have something you want to talk about this week.
Yeah, so lately I've just been throwing dragons at my various Dungeon World parties. It's just what I do now. We just do fucking dragons now. I think I've had like 3 dragon encounters in the last month, which is quite a bit considering sometimes I go a whole year without having a dragon, right? I love a dragon because a dragon is usually a really awesome set piece encounter because it requires a sort of all hands on deck, everybody doing the right thing, making a plan, executing a plan. You can't just run up and hit a dragon, right? There are lots of considerations that party members have to take into account before they engage a dragon, right? Because it's very deadly, and there are lots of like questions you have to answer, like how are we going to hurt the dragon? How are we going to get close to the dragon? And so forth. Party was trapped in some catacombs in this ancient abandoned city. They were trapped because this black dragon was guarding all the exits. And so they were just down there. And the catacombs weren't a friendly place either. They were filled with all sorts of ancient abominations that like wizards had created like, centuries ago. It was not a good situation at all. And so they, that's where we left the cliffhanger. The next session, the players had some time to think about what they wanted to do, right? And they came up with the plan of the wizard wanted to do a ritual that would allow them to essentially mesmerize the dragon and hold him in place so they could just kill him. And so I was like, okay. Now they were at a place of power, so that was no big deal. So that part of it was covered. And so I started to put some limitations on the ritual and kind of say what the ritual would require. What we ended up on through a conversation as a group, sort of a meta conversation, was that one of the characters would basically be like enchanted so that he would be like magical bait. And another character had already deduced that the dragon was missing an eye. And so that character, while the dragon was distracted by this other character who was being like a magical bait, the other guy would like walk up on the blind side of the dragon where the dragon was missing an eye and then jam a spear into his brain, right? That was the plan. It was a really terrific encounter because the wizard had to stay in the catacombs and maintain the ritual while they were luring the dragon in. And the guy who was the bait had to just like stand there while this dragon got within like, inches of his body, right? and could any moment like just bite him in half, right? And that'd be it. And to make matters worse, I had some of these catacomb abominations like also kind of assaulting their position. They were in a position where part of the party had to stay down in the catacombs and defend the wizard so that the ritual would get off okay, while the other 2 guys were topside with this dragon with this like plan that basically was going to give them one good solid shot at the dragon. It was really great. I was really happy with how I managed the scene, like by smash cutting and jumping back and forth between the 2 positions, like the guys with the dragon and then the guys down with the wizard and the abominations in the catacombs. Like I would jump back and forth and do different little bits of the narration kind of leading up to this strike against the dragon, right? And at any point, almost anything could have gone wrong, right? That would have fucked up the ritual and just made the whole thing a disaster, right? But they managed to pull it off. They were one of the abominations got like so close that they were feet away from the wizard, like defending the wizard. The other party members were, and they managed to kill that monster. And that's when the dragon was finally in place, and the guy ran up and stabbed him in the eye and the brain and killed him, and it was great. But it was so pregnant with tension and danger. The whole thing took less than 15 minutes, which is another thing I love about Dungeon World. Like you can have these really cool scenes like that and they only last like 15 or 20 minutes, right? The players like audibly sighed when it was over.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Just for listeners' sake, I wanted to read the ritual move. So ritual is from the wizard playbook. It is a basic move and it goes like this. When you draw on a place of power to create a magical effect, tell the GM what you're trying to achieve. Ritual effects are always possible, but the GM will give you 1 to 4 of the following conditions. It's going to take days, weeks, or months. First, you must something. You'll need help from something. It will require a lot of money. The best you can do is a lesser version, unreliable and limited. You and your allies risk danger from blank, or you'll have to disenchant blank to do it.
There are about 4 from that list.
Yeah, you pick, yeah.
I used all 4. All 4 of my choices that I could make.
Yeah, and that's fair when you're trying to do a ritual on the fly against a dragon.
I should point out that, like, the move says that the GM is supposed to tell the player what it is. We handled it as a conversation among the group at the table. In fact, one of the other players had the idea of making one of the party members the bait, right? Like, they had that idea, and I was like, oh, that sounds great. Sure, let's do that.
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
Got to play it up to your GM.
Yep. You know your audience well. So yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and move on to the next segment. Our next segment is What Should I Be on the Lookout For? Jason, you've been talking a lot about this Seclusium.
The Seclusium of Orphone of the Three Visions. I think is how it's pronounced. I'm actually not sure. I had Meg Baker on on our other show a few weeks back, and I think she said the Seclusium of Orphone of the Three Visions. So this is a Lamentations of the Flame Princess product by Vincent Baker. It's pretty system agnostic, so it's actually a really good fit for Dungeon World because it doesn't use lots of Lamentation-specific rules. And I used it recently myself, just a few days ago. What it is it's a really fresh take on the classic Wizard's Lair adventure. You know, the Wizard's Lair, like, you know, sacking the Wizard's Lair. That's a thing that we've been doing in D&D since, you know, the 70s, right? You know, that's a thing that's just a very common sort of like adventure to have. Like all products that Vincent Baker and Meg Baker work on, they put out there, it uses language in this really terrific way. Like just the name of it, right? The Seclusium, right? They don't refer to it as a wizard's lair or wizard's lab. It's a Seclusium. That's not even a real word. That's just something they made up. Okay.
I was going to ask, I was like, I don't think I've ever heard of a Seclusium before.
It's not a real word, but it's a perfect word, right? Like, doesn't it sound perfect?
Yeah, I believed it when I heard it.
Yeah. And the book is just filled with stuff like that. They do such a beautiful job with language and in all their games and products, like letting language inspire your creativity and your imagination. And so much so that, like, by the time I was done, like, with this process, like using this book to create this adventure, I'd internalized their language, their way of speaking about things, right? It's really going to get your creative juices flowing, right? It comes with 3 partially prepared Seclusiums. Okay. These are Seclusium adventures that you can use straight out of the book. You don't have to really do much to them. A couple of them require a little more preparation than the other. But they're mostly complete. You have to just kind of make a couple of choices for them and they're ready to go. Maybe draw a couple maps, that sort of thing. In addition to those 3 pre-prepared ones, it has all of the tables divided up by chapter and section so that you can make your own. So you can just like roll on the tables in very classic sort of OSR style, or you can just pick the stuff that you want. It goes like just step by step, so you can create your own Seclusium adventure. Pretty awesome. Really great product, beautifully put together. I have the physical book, but you could probably get away with just the PDF, honestly. We'll put a link to it in the show notes, so if anybody who wants to check it out, they can go pick up a copy of it on PDF at least. Yeah.
You mentioned that it was a fresh take on kind of an old classic D&D thing. Mm-hmm. For people like me who never actually played old classic D&D, what is that old-fashioned take?
Well, so the classic Wizard's Lair is, I'm a wizard with a tower. I got my lab and I've got all my experiments going on, and I leave for some reason. I'm taking a journey across the sea or something. I'm gone for some reason. And the party comes in. Outside the tower, there's usually some sort of magical construct that guards it, like a golem or something. You defeat the golems. You get into the tower. Inside the tower, there's going to be a bunch of magic items. But there are also going to be a bunch of magical traps and probably some more magical construct, enemies to fight. Possibly some abominations if it's an evil wizard, right? If it's an undead sort of wizard, necromancer, you'll have like some zombies or whatever. It's just that. The reason why I say it's a fresh take is they acknowledge that wizards might live in something other than a tower. Okay, so like the adventure we had actually took place in like a very arboreal setting, right? Like near a vineyard, right? They acknowledge that wizards might be doing something other than just performing experiments, right? They might have other things going on. It really handles like in a lot of like interesting detail, like the real specific character of your wizard's Seclusium, which is one of the things I like about it. And it does so by using this whole like different vocabulary to refer to things. And I quite like that. It just inspires you to like treat the classic oh, the wizard's gone out of his tower adventure. Like, it just gives you some new fuel for that. So,
okay. Gotcha. Awesome. I definitely need to pick that up because my wizard just showed up at his tower in my campaign. So I'm going to need a fresh take if I'm going to keep things interesting for my players. Awesome.
Good. Sounds good.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next segment. Our next segment is What Here Is Not What It Appears to Be.
This week I wanted to talk about the Mage playbook. Now, this is the Mage playbook that was published by Jacob Randolph a few years ago. It's normally used as a stand-in for the Wizard playbook, so if you're using the Mage, you don't usually have access to the Wizard in your game as well. I have heard people say that they think the Mage playbook is overpowered. There's a few different reasons they give, but the main thing is that their principal spellcasting move, which is called Cast a Spell, lets them basically kind of do anything, right, with their magic, right? They have to stay within certain like parameters, like in terms of whatever their sphere of magic is that they're committed to, right? So like the Clock Mage, like their magic basically manipulates time, but being able to manipulate time is pretty powerful, right? Like you can slow a monster down to where it can't even move, right? And then just walk up and kill it, right? That's one of the more like egregious uses of the spell, I guess I've seen. I don't think egregious is the right word, but I mean, it's a tool at your disposal, but I think it's okay to do it. I'm going to explain why here in a second. So I've heard a lot of people make the argument that the Mage playbook is too powerful because the restrictions on the spell casting aren't really restrictions at all. Like you can kind of get around them. You can kind of justify almost anything as being within one of your focuses or whatever, right? I don't think the Mage playbook is overpowered at all. I haven't actually used the Mage playbook in my games in a while. I go back and forth. Like I go through stretches where I'm doing Mage and then stretches where we're doing Wizard, you know. Right now I'm in a Wizard phase, as it were. But I don't think the Mage is overpowered because I think GMs should really give a lot of thought to the nature of magic in their game. And in my game, I try to treat magic as a very powerful mercurial force, okay? And if you are the sort of person who is manipulating or attempting to manipulate this powerful mercurial force, you're exposing yourself to a certain amount of danger, right? I also am not a huge fan of wizards being able just to fire off stuff in the middle of combat. I usually like for the wizard to, at the very least, have like someone defending them or like having them be a little bit out of the scrum when it comes to spell casting. Now, the Mage Cast a Spell move is not for combat. They have a specific combat magic move. I think people should be like cognizant of magic is a powerful force, and we should treat it that way. Because otherwise, you start to cheapen it, and it starts to have like very little meaning in your setting, right? I think once you start thinking about magic in that way, the sort of quote-unquote like overpowered nature of the Mage's Cast a Spell move starts to recede a little bit, right? So, for example, one of the options that you choose when you're casting the spell, like when if you get a 10 plus or a 7 to 9, no matter what, you have to choose an option. One of the choices is the spell does much more or much less than you intended. I take those words, much more or much less, like really seriously. If they choose that option, if I go with much more, it's going to be a lot more. Like they might lose control of the spell. It might do things in the environment or in the scene that they weren't anticipating that creates problems, right? If they choose much less, the spell may not do anything at all. Like it might be like just a very, very like kind of de minimis effect. Like it'll basically succeed, but like not really in the way they thought it would. Or it might like lead to other moves or it might lead to other things needing to be done in order to complete the thing they were trying to complete, right?
I mean, I've played with the Mage playbook before, and I've played with many playbooks. I definitely feel like the Mage, it has whole other levels of capability that they don't have, but you have an incredible risk as well, and not just for yourself, but for the entire party. So it was kind of, and that was in a campaign you were running, so I think it's a good way of treating it to keep the Mage from just carelessly using cast a spell.
And it's that risk reward that's the key, right? I'm glad you said that because that's ultimately what my argument boils down to, right? One of the options you can choose, for example, is you have unseen side effects or the spell draws unwanted attention. That's a very, very powerful tool for the GM. That's your invitation to basically show the player just how dangerous magic is, right? Draw unwanted attention. That's a great one. If you've got a character who's a clock mage, right? And they're doing they just keep hitting the like slow down time, slow down the monster, freeze them, like slow down time. Start punishing that, right? And I don't mean punish it, but like start showing them like the consequences of doing that. So maybe there's some sort of extra dimensional force. Vincent Baker would call them plasmids in the Seclusium of Orphone of the Three Visions. Maybe there's a particularly powerful plasmid that is starting to notice that, right? Maybe you're drawing something's attention, right? That's not good, right? and you can make sure the player understands that. You can say, oh, well, you know what? You are starting to have visions of like, there's a demon who's clearly like observing you right now, and you keep drawing its attention because you keep doing this spell.
Right. Yeah. I think, if you have somebody who's doing magic in this way with the cast a spell move, you should just write a front about it. Like every time they're using it and it doesn't go well, like there's a specific front that's hitting.
Start ticking off some grim portents, right?
Yeah, if they're doing the clock thing, every time that they do it and it doesn't go great and they choose that side effect or it's a 6,
the god of time is pissed off or whatever, right? And they're getting more and more angry. Right?
Yeah, or something's noticing them, and at first they just see like whenever they stop time, shadows don't seem to follow the rules.
Exactly. It puts a little bit of onus on the GM, I guess, to kind of mitigate the power that the mage possesses. But it's fun, right? It's a fun sort of thing. And,
it's so much fun.
And in a way, you're truly like you're adhering to the principles of the game, right? Like because you are making the character look awesome, right? How awesome your characters got the attention of like demons and gods or whatever, right? Or your character caused a whole forest to be leveled because their spell went haywire, right? Like that's awesome. The rest of the party may not appreciate it. The wizard themselves in the moment may not appreciate it, but the player certainly appreciates it, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
If a player's got a really big ask, if it's something they could plausibly do, but it's really, really stretching it, like the thing they're trying to accomplish, make sure they understand the consequences and then ask them if they want to proceed, and if they do, well, hit them with a hard move if they fail, right? I think that's totally legit.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean like your players need to be worried about every time they try to do something big and they fail, they're going to instantly die. But,
right.
But make it fictionally
make it fictionally appropriate. And it's okay to like share that with you. It's okay to tell the players like, hey, look, I think this is awesome what you're trying to do. I just want you to know that these are some of the possible consequences, right? I think it's even one of the moves, the GM moves, is tell them the consequences and ask, right? Like, I think that's okay to do, right? And if players want to go there, then let them. They can, but just it's the risk they take. So
yeah, that's all part of the bigger conversation that we've been having on this show. That it's about the conversation between the players and the GM. Mm-hmm. It's all tied into that. I had a similar thing where my players were considering doing a ritual, and I was like, if you do it like this, it's going to be very, very dangerous, and I'm telling you up front. And they ultimately decided to go a different route and use some other kind of magic rather than ritual because it just was safer and, in my opinion, a little bit more appropriate for the situation.
I'm glad you brought up ritual real fast, because that's actually one of the things that I don't like about the mage. The reason why I've lately gone back to wizard is because I think the mage does cheapen the ritual move a little bit. I feel like every time I've had a mage in the game, like they don't really have a lot of incentive to take ritual, except that just because like rituals are so difficult to pull off and their cast a spell magic works pretty well, at least half the time. That's a little hard to get around. And so for that reason, I kind of am not a huge fan of the mage playbook right now at this moment. But, my thinking evolves on this sort of thing all the time. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I think rituals are as easy as the GM lets them be. But typically, you demand some preparation for a ritual that you don't demand for that, or for the cast a spell move. To me, the wizard is very, very scientific about their approach to magic, and I can only do these things that I know how to do. And if I don't know how to do it, I have to do a lot of steps to make it happen. And the mage is more wild talent.
The mage is more like a sorcerer, even because the sorcerer is usually like more like the wild talent, like innate talent sort of magic user, right? So.
Yeah, and it flows naturally, but the nature of the magic can consume them or whatever.
Yeah. But that's the key. Make sure the magic is dangerous and mercurial.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next segment. Our next segment is what here is useful or valuable to me. We're going to continue highlighting some of our fantastic submissions for the Magic Item Contest with this. But first, a quick announcement about the Magic Item Contest. Our final submission deadline for those magic items is going to be the afternoon of April 3rd. If you get them to us before then, they will be included in our judging for the winning prize. If you submit them after that afternoon, we will not be able to consider them. We'll still love to read them, but you won't be in for that prize.
Which is a $25 gift certificate to either Amazon or drive-thru.
The first item is from listener Josh. It is called the Origami Bestiary. It is described as worn, 0 weight, 5 uses. An old leather-bound book with all but 5 pages torn out. When you tear out a piece of paper and fold it into an origami creature, describe the creature. It will come to life and grow to its full size of its real counterpart. The origami creature will follow you until it is destroyed. Commanding the creature to fight with you adds +2 damage. Commanding the creature to protect you adds +1 armor, but the creature is destroyed. Be careful not to use an origami creature around fire or water, for they are still paper and destroyed easily. Outside of combat, you can use the creature to almost anything within the real creature's ability. I really love this item.
Yeah, it's cute. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, a friend of mine wrote it. It's the first magic item that he's written, and I was blown away.
Good.
I thought it was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think my only, I always have to criticize these things. It's just my nature. I can't help it. My only criticism of it, I love it, Josh. It's great, but my only criticism of it is how come it can do 2 damage, but it can only take and still be functional, but if it takes a hit, it's destroyed. That's the part that doesn't make any sense to me. But so I feel like if it attacked, it would also be destroyed, right?
That's true. Maybe that might be something to add to it.
Yeah.
It's super evocative. Our next item is from listener Logan. This item is called the Marvelous Scabbard of Bran Baereddyn. This is a rather plain-looking scabbard with a simple knotwork motif near the top. It will change to fit any sword. If the wearer has fulfilled their alignment since they last rested, it becomes activated. Each time the weapon is drawn, the wielder may choose a single enhancement. As soon as the weapon is returned to the scabbard, it loses the enhancement. This way, the owner of the scabbard can have a weapon that is forceful or serrated or sharp, whatever, depending on their need.
Yeah, I mean, basically you get to add a tag, is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It doesn't say so here, but could you say lightning and pull it out? It has electricity on it, or could you say? I don't know.
See, I don't know because it says enhancement, and that seems more like an enchantment.
I love this item because the magic is the scabbard, right? It makes the sword cool, but the scabbard, and the fact that it's a scabbard is what makes it magical. I don't know. The lowly scabbard often doesn't get much attention.
Something I did recently, which I haven't done in a long time, is read the magic items that are in the back of Dungeon World rulebook. And this just smacks of all the same ideas that are in the back there. It feels really classic as far as Dungeon World goes.
Yeah, it really is. It's very much of that type. I agree. Awesome. The last one is from listener Christopher, who I think it's Christopher Sneezak, who is one of the co-hosts or one of the hosts of the Misdirected Mark podcast, and so just a little shout out for him there. His item is called the Chromatic Cup. This bronzed goblet has 4 gems set into the bowl. When you fill the cup with a liquid, the gems all take on one of 5 colors: ruby red, sapphire blue, emerald green, pearl white, or onyx black, which change every time someone drinks from the cup. I'll tell you what, if you've ever played old D&D, you definitely know where this item is going. When you drink from the cup, you feel a strange energy course through your body, varying depending on the color of the gems. Red has a spicy heat to it as you drink, followed by heartburn. Blue causes all the hair on your body to stand up on end, and a tingling sensation fills your mouth. Green tastes foul and putrid and makes you nauseous. White gives you brain freeze, and a frost covers your lips. Black has an acidic tang to it, and then a bubbling feeling in your stomach. The next time you speak or breathe out, state what you're intending to do and roll +con. You let loose a dragon's elemental breath. The type depends on which color the gems were when you drank. Red is fire, blue is a bolt of lightning, green's a cloud of poison gas, white is a spray of arctic ice and wind, black is a stream of acid. On a 10 plus, you choose 2. On a 7 to 9, you choose 1. On a miss, some catastrophe occurs as a result of the draconic breath. The options are: what you intended with the draconic energy comes to pass, you avoid harming yourself with the draconic energy, you control the draconic energy. Everyone knows the chromatic dragons and what their different breath weapons do, and I love it. I don't know. It is speaking to my soul. This item is, so it's very, very classic,
Yeah.
and I'm into it. So
It's
nice.
pretty sweet. I like it a lot. I love the idea of an adventurer just like in a dungeon, desperately trying to fill a cup to drink it so that he can like scorch his enemies.
And being pissed when he gets the green one, right? Like, God damn it.
This is the worst.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, thanks, Christopher. This is awesome. This is like so, just really nice touches too, like the way the liquids taste and make you feel when you drink them. Like, yeah, really good touch.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next segment. Our next segment is What is About to Happen.
All right, this is our ongoing comic strip AP featuring the adventures of Domenico Castafiel. All right, when we last saw Domenico, he was going into the masquerade party being held by a local gangster named Iotho&rsquo. And you had just walked in through the foyer, and I mentioned that there were lots of beautifully dressed people around and circus performers and all that sort of thing, drinking, dancing, the whole 9 yards. I have a question for you, Domenico. You said that you were here seeking something that you believe to be part of a recent score, like a recent heist that Iotho's men were involved in. What is this thing you're seeking? Do you know the specific thing you're looking for?
You know, I have my fingers in lots of pots, as it were, lots of people listening for me about anything that can keep the dead at their rest.
Okay.
What I've heard that he got in a raid or a heist or whatever manner he managed to get it in is seemingly a simple wooden stake, but in fact was used by undead hunters centuries ago to put an eternal end to the undead that they were hunting.
Oh, okay. We know that your family suffers from curse that causes sporadic vampirism among different members of the family when they die, right? Is your intention to put your family members down or with this item, or is it to somehow use the power of the item to come up with a solution that will help destroy the vampirism itself? What's your intention with the item?
My plan for the item is actually to get it and synthesize it, break it down into its components, disenchanting it and using it in liquid so that I can just give it to living members to drink, and it will destroy that undead part that's in them.
Okay, so we're probably looking at maybe a ritual of some sort then.
That would definitely be a ritual if I got the item and wanted to use it for that purpose.
Okay, sounds good. We'll keep that conversation open. So you've just moved into the party. Where are you headed?
So my plan is to seek out the Majordomo.
Okay.
And engage with him. But first I have to make the rounds.
Okay, sure.
This is this is a fine party after all. I actually converse quietly to my companion, my unseen servant.
Oh, okay.
I actually have him dictating my life for me at all times.
Okay, very good. Yeah.
He writes on invisible paper, but I have a way of making it visible whenever I need to look back at something. He's sometimes rather insufferable about some of his side notes and things like that, but he is very, very thorough.
Good. All right.
I'm conversing with him as I walk through the party, and I'm like, this is just, this is so ostentatious. I can't believe that I have to come here and deal with all these people, and I just cannot stand the needs of high society and up jumps like this Bruno fellow.
Does the unseen servant literally speak to you, invoke?
No, he's not allowed to. He's mechanically not allowed to speak to me, so it's just me talking to him. Sometimes, though, in the footnotes, he writes what he would respond.
Okay, very good, very good.
So I'm making the rounds, politely clapping for the circus performers. It's kind of a golf clap, I'm not actually that impressed. And hopefully I appease everyone enough. They see that I'm here. I'm making the rounds. I've got the coat of arms on my doublet, on my cape, so they can tell it's me, even though I'm wearing a mask.
So yeah, you're ruining the masquerade aspect of it, aren't you, by having your family's crest on your clothing?
Well, I could be any Castafiel.
That's true. There are a bunch of you guys. That's true. Yeah. Well, so are you keeping an eye on things as well, or is this like just idle chit chat, or are you also like kind of scoping the place out?
It's mostly just idle chit chat because it's usually the idle rich that are at these kinds of events. But I'm keeping an eye out for the Majordomo, for him to make his appearance, and to see if maybe they're using this party as a front to move some of their items around.
Yeah, you'll see the Majordomo. You're familiar with him. When it comes to Iotho Bruno and his business outside of the house and in the house, but out, especially like out in the, like in the bazaar and in the markets and that sort of thing, he is the man, right? Iotho almost never leaves, right? And so you recognize him. So yeah, you see the Majordomo. His name is Edvard. He's kind of a ghoulish looking fellow, if I'm being honest. If you didn't know better, you'd think that he was a necromancer or some other practitioner of dark arts, because he wears this like long flowing purple and black velvet like gown almost, right? And all the way, the collar like goes all the way up to his, all the way up his neck, up, and it kind of holds his head up a little bit, and the sleeves go all the way down to his wrists. Like he's covered. He's got a bald head, very pale, sunken eyes, and he looks vaguely like a Cenobite from Hellraiser. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Like, he sort of looks somewhat like that, except without all the piercings in his face, right? Right. Just kind of a ghoulish, creepy guy. And it's him by reputation. You're familiar with him, but also because he's ordering all the various, like, the servants around. The servants are all dressed, if you recall, they're all dressed in, like, black velvet livery, and they have like crow's masks on, right? So he's kind of ordering them all about. He himself is not wearing a mask. It's all business. He's all business. Edvard, what do you do?
I walk up to him and say, Edvard, it seems you are not partaking of this party that your master is putting on for us. Please have some wine. At least enjoy your party that much. I offer him a cup and grab another from a passing servant.
He clasps his hands in front of him, and as if to like block you. He intends to take nothing from you. He clasps his hands together and raises his head, and kind of looks down on you a little bit, and he says, "Domenico Castafiel. Have I guessed it?"
You are sharp as people say you are, Edvard. Please, don't make me stand here holding two glasses. What will people say?
They will say, there is a man who knows how to do his job.
Well, and I look at both glasses in my hands, I suppose they will say, there is a man who knows how to do his partying. And I take a long drink from one. What are you so busy with this evening, Edvard?
He gives like a sweeping motion across the entire room with all of its gold and finery and food and wine, with his eyes. He gives a sweeping motion with his head and eyes, as if to say, all of this, you fool. What else do you think? He doesn't say that, of course, but that's his reply.
Okay, that's all he's going to give me. Well, Edvard, you do know how to throw a fantastic party, though you do not know how to party yourself. My congratulations on this fantastic affair.
I do not require your congratulations. I do the assignments that my master tasked me to do, and knowing that I've done my duty is satisfaction enough. I certainly don't require any extra accolades.
Edvard, you are too good for this place. I should wish to recruit you for the Castafiel household if I thought that you could be bought.
Yes. I would work in your household if not for the fact that so many of the servants go missing.
I can't say I've heard that rumor myself. Please, enlighten me.
Oh, a little bird tells me that servants occasionally go missing. Sometimes they're found exsanguinated.
You must have delightfully imaginative friends. Surprising company for you, I would think.
He cocks his head and gives you a very, I'm totally over it smile and says, "May I help you with something specific, Mr. Castafiel?"
Oh, of course. Sorry. I just let the wine get to me a little bit, and I just chatter on and on and on, but...
Yes, you do.
But please, I was hoping to speak to you about some business, actually, and I completely go straight-faced. I hear that you, or your master, rather, has recently acquired some new property. Something that, while seeming very mundane, is worth a great deal to someone like me.
So, now my question is, do you intend to make him, some sort of bribe or give him some sort of motivation why he should answer you?
Well, I was hoping he might be persuaded because I could give him another job or a side job or something where he could make a lot of money for the Castafiels. I was trying to imply that by saying I would employ him.
Okay, keep pushing on that. Maybe, yeah, that might work.
Edvard, I know that you are full-time engaged here, but I'm sure that in maybe a spare hour or two a week, you could whip my staff into shape. And for this, I could compensate you very generously. The Castafiel coppers are known to overflow on those who do us favors.
And in exchange for this fabulous business opportunity, I have to tell you what I know about my master's recent business transactions.
Yes. It's nothing that he would not tell me himself if he were not otherwise occupied.
Roll parley.
9.
All right. We can talk. But not until after the party is concluded. And only if you promise to flatter my master Iotho. Get him to take a fancy to you. Perhaps even show him a bit of physical affection. He says, "You're a very handsome man behind that mask. And you're a very charming man. Do you agree?"
I agree that I will definitely be flattering and charming. We'll see how it goes from there.
Very well.
It's always a pleasure doing business with you, Edvard. And as I walk away, I make an aside. It looks like House of Cards, where I'm just staring into space, but I'm talking to my unseen servant.
Yes, it's good.
There's a man who knows absolutely nothing about Castafiels.
As we close this, we'll end it here, but Edvard will make a point of grabbing a goblet of wine as it comes past him and drinking it in front of you.
Well, folks, that just leaves one final question. Who's really in control here?
That would be the Gauntlet gaming community. We can be found on Google+. Just go to the community section and search for the Gauntlet. We are also on Twitter at Gauntlet RPG. Go follow us there for all the fabulous Twitterings that we do. And we also play lots of games online through a group called Gauntlet Hangouts, which can be found on Meetup. Or if more easily, I think you can find the link in our G+ community. Also, one last little quick note. If you could give us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, listeners. That's our show. I can just see this happening already. Just somebody's, fiddling with the paper and they don't know what it is yet, and then they make something on accident.
Look, guys, a beholder. Well, except it says it can't do anything. It can't it says dragons can fly, but they couldn't breathe fire or whatever because they're origami, right?
Well, because the fire would kill itself.
No. Stupid origami beast.
What were you thinking?
What were you thinking? You're made of paper.
I would love it if somebody tried that.